UFC heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall has always been candid when discussing his place in the sport, and in a recent interview, he offered a humble take on how he might have fared against one of the legends of the heavyweight division. Speaking on a podcast, Aspinall admitted that a prime version of Daniel Cormier would have been a difficult matchup for him, perhaps even one of the toughest possible opponents he could face. "Peak DC has the worst style for me ever," Aspinall said, acknowledging Cormier's unique skill set. "He's short, I've said this to his face as well. Short guy who just keeps walking forward, changing levels in between like grappling punches. He can knock you out, he can take you down. He's got cardio for days. For my style, he's a nightmare." Aspinall went on to praise the former two-division champion's overall ability, emphasizing how effective Cormier was in his prime. "I thought about it," he said. "He was a beast. Peak DC was unreal." Cormier, a former UFC heavyweight and light heavyweight champion, built his legacy on relentless pressure, world-class wrestling, and the kind of fight IQ that few could match. His ability to mix his striking and grappling seamlessly made him a dominant force during his run at the top, and even today, his name remains synonymous with greatness in the sport. For Aspinall, that recognition comes from a place of respect rather than comparison. While he prepares to defend his heavyweight title against Cyril Gane at UFC 321 next weekend, the English champion remains focused on the present challenges of his division. Still, discussions about dream matchups and what-if scenarios are a natural part of being at the top, especially when figures like Jon Jones and Alex Pereira continue to circle the heavyweight conversation. Even so, Aspinall's comments reflect a grounded and self-aware perspective. Despite being hailed as the prototype of the UFC's next-generation heavyweight, athletic, technical, and well-rounded, he isn't shy about acknowledging how difficult a prime Daniel Cormier would have been to deal with. It's a level of honesty that sets Aspinall apart from many champions, showing his willingness to appreciate the past while carving out his own path in the present. UFC light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira believes that Jon Jones still has genuine interest in facing him in what would be one of the biggest super fights in mixed martial arts history. Since his spectacular victory at UFC 320, Pereira has dominated headlines across the MMA world. That night, he delivered yet another stunning performance, knocking out Magomed Ankalaev to reclaim his light heavyweight title and further solidify his reputation as one of the most unique and accomplished athletes to ever step inside the octagon. With his combination of elite kickboxing pedigree, composure under pressure, and knockout power, Pereira has continued to blur the line between legend and active champion. Following the win, Pereira wasted no time expressing his desire to fight Jon Jones, the reigning UFC heavyweight champion. The Brazilian star has been vocal about wanting the matchup to happen sooner rather than later, even going so far as to suggest the fight take place at the White House next year, an idea that highlights both his confidence and his flair for the dramatic. While the location might be unrealistic, the magnitude of a potential Pereira versus Jones bout is undeniable. It would pit two of the most accomplished fighters of their generation against each other. The dominant heavyweight king versus the two-division knockout artist who has taken on every challenge placed before him. During a Q&A session held on Friday in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Pereira addressed the topic once again, making it clear that he believes Jones remains sincere about wanting the fight. "I don't think so, because that's something he said in interviews he wants," Pereira explained when asked whether he expects a long wait to hear from Jones. "I think he's on a certain age that's a little elevated for the sport, like mine, and we don't have time to waste. I think he will be sincere if he's interested or not." Pereira, now 37 years old, understands that time is a crucial factor for both him and Jones, who has also hinted that his fighting days may be numbered. The window for a historic clash between the two champions is small, and Pereira seems determined to make the most of it if the opportunity arises. "This is MMA," he added. "Those who know my work, I always say in my interviews that you either lose or win, but I'll do my best and prepare myself well to come out with the victory." Jones, who captured the UFC heavyweight title with a quick submission win over Cyril Gane in 2023, has since been sidelined due to injury. However, his name continues to loom large over multiple divisions, with fans and fighters alike calling for marquee matchups. Pereira's rise in dominance at light heavyweight has reignited conversations about whether Jones could be tempted to return for one last super fight, one that could define both men's legacies. While there is no official indication from the UFC that the matchup is being planned, the possibility continues to capture the imagination of fight fans. For Pereira, the challenge represents more than just another title defense or a payday. It's about testing himself against the very best, even as both he and Jones approach the latter stages of their careers. Both champions have proven nearly unbeatable when motivated, and stylistically, the potential matchup offers one of the most intriguing contrasts in modern MMA. Pereira's elite striking and calculated aggression against Jones' grappling, creativity, and all-around mastery. As Pereira put it, he's not waiting around forever. Both men have achieved greatness in their own right, but if Jon Jones truly wants the fight, and Pereira clearly does, time may be running short to make it happen. UFC middleweight contender Marvin Vettori recently opened up about being removed from a private Instagram group chat that once included several big names in the sport: Khamzat Chimaev, Darren Till, and Strickland. In an interview with Helen Yee Sports, Vettori reflected on the lighthearted yet competitive nature of the group and how his absence from training sessions in Las Vegas ultimately led to him being kicked out. The conversation took place as Vettori discussed his upcoming fight against Bruno Ferreira, which is scheduled for UFC 323 on December 6th. "We even have a group that Strickland did on Instagram, and we were talking all kinds of stuff in that group. Darren Till and Khamzat were in it too," Vettori explained. "And even right after the fight, I said, 'Listen, Darren, just stop it. You look horrible holding those pads.' But he never answered. We used to bully Darren a little bit in that group. Sean kicked me out. It's so funny, like people just sending videos. Sean never told you about it?" Vettori went on to say that the group was initially meant for sparring coordination, but his busy schedule and frequent training in California instead of Nevada led to tension. "It was supposed to be a sparring group, and then they kicked me out since I'm not in Vegas all the time, and I didn't show up," he said. Khamzat even said it. "Oh, I didn't show up for the sparring that time." But I was like, "Bro, am I going to drive 5 hours just to spar and then come back? I didn't plan it. Plus, I got my own stuff going on, and I want to fight this guy, so I'm not going to spar him." The Italian fighter, who has spent much of his recent training time at Beneil Dariush's King's MMA in Anaheim, emphasized that he's been prioritizing his own fight preparation over keeping up with the group's sparring plans in Nevada. Beyond his fight preparations, Vettori has also drawn controversy for comments made on social media that many have criticized as anti-Semitic. In a now-deleted post on his personal X, formerly Twitter account, Vettori made inflammatory remarks referencing Ashkenazi Jews, claiming they control everything. The post was widely condemned by fans and media, though Vettori has not issued a formal apology. Known for his fiery personality and outspoken nature, Vettori has often courted controversy outside the octagon. Despite backlash, he remains focused on his fighting career and his upcoming matchup with Pereira, which will mark his return to action after a lengthy layoff. Vettori has long been regarded as one of the UFC's most intense competitors, both in attitude and fighting style, and his comments, whether about sparring partners or social issues, continue to draw attention from across the MMA community as he prepares for his next appearance at UFC 323. Ilia Topuria has reportedly lost over 200,000 Instagram followers in the past 30 days following news of a potential split with his ex-wife. Several MMA-related Instagram accounts tracked his follower count and confirmed the decline, highlighting a notable dip in the fighter's social media popularity. The drop comes amid public speculation about his personal life, with fans closely watching the situation unfold online. While Topuria remains focused on his fighting career, the recent follower loss underscores how personal matters can impact even high-profile athletes' presence on social media. UFC welterweight contender Sean Brady is set to face one of the division's most exciting rising stars, Michael Morales, in a high-stakes crash that could determine the next challenger for the 170-pound title. Brady, who's riding a wave of momentum after a dominant stretch in 2024, looked poised to earn a title shot following his stunning submission victory over Leon Edwards earlier this year at UFC London. That win, his most impressive to date, came on the heels of back-to-back victories against Gilbert Burns and Kelvin Gastelum, re-establishing him as one of the elite contenders in the division after suffering the lone loss of his career to Belal Muhammad at UFC 280. However, rather than waiting on the sidelines, Brady will step back into the octagon next month at UFC 322 in a fight that will serve as both a test and an opportunity to cement his claim for the next title shot. His opponent, Michael Morales, has rapidly built a reputation as one of the most dangerous prospects in the sport. The matchup, first reported by MMA Latinoamericana and later confirmed by journalist Marcel Dorf, is set to take place at Madison Square Garden, adding even more weight to what's shaping up to be one of the most stacked cards of the year. Morales enters the bout with a perfect 18-0 record, and his rise through the ranks has been nothing short of remarkable. The 24-year-old Ecuadorian has already taken out several seasoned veterans, including Neil Magny, Jake Matthews, and Max Griffin, and is coming off a devastating TKO win over Gilbert Burns in May, a performance that catapulted him into the top 15 and drew comparisons to Anderson Silva from UFC CEO Dana White. Brady versus Morales is a stylistic clash that promises fireworks. Brady's relentless grappling and suffocating top control have made him one of the division's toughest puzzles to solve, while Morales brings explosive striking, youth, and speed, the kind of attributes that could spell danger for anyone willing to engage with him. Meanwhile, the main event at UFC 322 will see Islam Makhachev defend his newly captured welterweight championship against Jack Della Maddalena, with the co-main featuring a historic women's super fight between Valentina Shevchenko and Zhang Weili. Weili, the longtime strawweight queen, vacated her title to move up and challenge Shevchenko for flyweight gold, a move that has generated massive buzz across the MMA world. The addition of Brady versus Morales to the card adds even more depth to an already star-studded lineup, while also raising questions about the division's pecking order. With Shavkat Rakhmonov still recovering from a training injury sustained after his win over Ian Machado Gary at UFC 310, the winner of Brady versus Morales could very well find themselves next in line for a championship opportunity. For Brady, this fight is a chance to reinforce his place among the elite and prove that his loss to Muhammad was just a bump in the road. For Morales, it's a golden opportunity to announce his arrival as a legitimate contender and potentially take out one of the most dangerous men in the division. Either way, when the two collide at Madison Square Garden, the stakes will be massive, and the outcome could shape the future of the welterweight division heading into 2025. Bia Mesquita entered her UFC debut carrying the weight of immense expectations, but the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu legend delivered in spectacular fashion in front of her home crowd at UFC Rio. Fighting in Rio de Janeiro on October 11th, the former LFA flyweight champion and world-renowned submission grappler made the most of the moment, submitting Irina Alexeyeva in the second round via rear naked choke. It was a near-perfect introduction to the UFC for the multiple-time Jiu-Jitsu world champion, who extended her professional MMA record to 6-0 with the win. Mosquita's debut was one of the most anticipated moments of the card, and she did not disappoint. From the opening bell, she showcased the grappling control and composure that made her one of the most decorated competitors in submission grappling history. Although Alexeva, dubbed by some fans as the Russian Ronda Rousey, survived a dominant opening round, she ultimately succumbed to Mosquita's relentless pressure and technical prowess once the fight hit the mat in the second stanza. Speaking at the post-fight press conference, Mosquita described the emotions of competing on such a big stage in front of a home crowd, saying, "This is the perfect scenario I could ever imagine in my life, doing my debut at home, with the fans, my family watching me, with this warm welcome to the UFC. I'm just so happy that I could put on my game, everything that we have been training and planned for this fight. It went very well and I could get the finish in the second round. I'm just so happy that all the job I've been putting in is working and everything is falling into place in the best way it could be." She also reflected on the fight itself, admitting she was surprised by Alexeva's resilience early on. "I was really surprised she survived the first round. I could get my ground and pound really going on that very first round, but she proved she's a survivor. But I knew the key for this fight was to be patient, that my submission would come. I would be able to put my game on, and that's exactly what happened. I had good control in the first round and got my submission in the second round because I was patient. I knew she would give me something, and that's what happened. She gave her back, and there was nowhere for her to go after that." The win capped off an emotional night for Brazilian fans, which also featured Charles Oliveira's triumphant return to the win column in the main event. But Mosquita's performance stood out as one of the brightest moments of the card, showcasing her ability to seamlessly transition her world-class grappling into MMA dominance. Now 1-0 in the UFC, Mosquita is eager to prove that she's more than just a submission specialist. The 34-year-old acknowledged that while her ground game will always be her strongest weapon, she's been working diligently to improve her striking and wrestling to become a more complete mixed martial artist. "I know what my strength is," Mosquita explained, "but I'm always learning. I've been training my striking, my takedowns, everything. I want to keep evolving and show that I'm not just a grappler, I'm a fighter." As one of the most accomplished female grapplers to ever enter the octagon, Mosquita's flawless debut suggests that her transition to the UFC could be something special. With her composure, elite ground skills, and growing confidence in all areas of MMA, Bia Mosquita's first UFC victory might just be the beginning of a run that takes her deep into the flyweight division's elite. Henry Cejudo has confirmed that his next appearance in the octagon will come against one of the UFC's fastest rising young prospects, Peyton Talbot, but there's growing speculation that it could also mark the end of his storied career. The former two-division UFC champion and 2008 Olympic gold medalist has endured a difficult stretch since returning from retirement in 2023. After stepping away from the sport at the height of his success in 2020, Cejudo's comeback has been marked by 3 consecutive losses and a devastating injury that left many wondering if Triple C would ever be the same again. His most recent outing at UFC Seattle ended in heartbreak when a gruesome eye injury forced him to retire mid-fight against Song Yadong. The damage was severe enough to make Cejudo fear for his long-term vision and overall health, prompting him to suggest that his next fight would likely be his last. Following that bout, Cejudo privately told close friends and even former President Donald Trump that he planned to compete just one more time before officially hanging up the gloves. Dana White confirmed on Instagram Live that Cejudo will make that final walk at UFC 323 in December, as part of the card headlined by Merab Dvalishvili vs Petr Yan 2 for the Bantamweight Championship. The event will also feature Alexandre Pantoja vs Joshua Vaughn in the co-main event and will serve as the final UFC pay-per-view of the ESPN era, with the promotion moving to Paramount in 2026. Cejudo's bout against Peyton Talbot was one of the more surprising announcements on the card. Talbot, a dynamic 27-year-old bantamweight prospect, recently bounced back from his first career loss and has been touted as a future contender. However, facing an Olympic gold medalist and a former two-division UFC champion is by far the biggest challenge of his career. For Cejudo, it's a fight that could either serve as the perfect swan song or a final reminder of how quickly time moves in the fight game. Cejudo, who earned his Triple C moniker by capturing Olympic gold and UFC titles at both flyweight and bantamweight, revolutionized the lighter-weight classes with his blend of high-level wrestling and sharp striking. His victories over the likes of Demetrius Johnson, TJ Dillashaw, and Marlon Moraes remain some of the most impressive accomplishments in modern MMA history. After his loss to Song Yadong, however, Cejudo's tone changed dramatically. Initially expressing a desire to avenge the defeat, he later admitted that the injury forced him to reconsider the toll that years of competition have taken on his body. When speaking to Trump at the NCAA wrestling finals earlier this year, Cejudo said bluntly, "I've got one more, and I'm calling it." As UFC 323 approaches, the stakes are unusually emotional for a fighter who's already achieved nearly everything there is to achieve in the sport. For Talbot, it's the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to make his name by taking out a legend. For Cejudo, it may well be the final chapter in a career defined by greatness, grit, and an unrelenting drive to prove that skill and determination can transcend eras. Whether it ends in triumph or heartbreak, Henry Cejudo's next fight looks set to be his last stand, one final test for one of combat sport's most decorated champions.